Moving on to topic number 4, and this is a big topic, and it's going to get heated up over the summer. Dame's destination. Dame time, baby. Dame time. You know, I always love doing that on this show. Dame Lillard is one of my favorite players. And man, it looks like he's going to be a free agent. I sincerely doubt he goes back to Portland. But, I mean, what do you think is going to happen with him on the free agent market this summer?
All right. Well, as you throw cold water on this whole situation, I think he is going back to Portland. They can. I think what now in the NBA, just because you sign a long-term deal doesn't mean you can't be moved to another team later on. We've seen players do this. We've seen Harden. We've seen Paul George. We've seen several players just say, "I want to leave. I'm under contract, but I don't want to be here anymore." So they make a move. So I think Lillard's going to sign his deal. It's going to be for, I think the projection is 4 years, 176. It looks like it's going to be about 39 the first year, 42 the second year, 45 the third year, and then 48 million and change the fourth year. I love Dame Lillard. He's got that like scowl, that attitude. And of course, he's an awesome player. He's hit game winners. They just, unfortunately, Portland hasn't really advanced that far in the playoffs. Losing Nurkic a couple of times, the injury really hurts. He loves playing with CJ McCollum, but McCollum's not always, healthy either. I mean, he was banged up a lot this past year. But I think the thing with Lillard is, number one, he knows he's the man in Portland. He's the guy there, and Portland loves him. And Portland's got this thing where it's like they call themselves like the weird city or whatever it is, and they're one of those cities that embrace Dame Lillard so much. They have really good fans. They're the only game in town. They're the only sport in town. There's no other Portland professional sports in the Big Four major sports. And then on top of that, he likes playing with CJ McCollum. So, he's from Oakland, California. So he's from that West Coast area. He went to Weber State, which is in Utah. So I don't see him making a shift to the East Coast. I don't see him going to the Lakers or anything like that. I don't see, because then if he goes to the Lakers, he's possibly the third best player on the team. He is the third best player on the team, but the other two guys are healthy. So you're going to put him ahead of Anthony Davis. So that's fair. That's what he has to consider as well. So do you want to be the main attraction when people go and watch a Portland Trail Blazers game? Do you love being there? He's 30. I think he's going to be 31 to start next season. So it depends on what he wants. Does he want to try to contend for a title with Portland, which I think he can do if they make another move or two, or do you want to go somewhere else where maybe you're not the top guy, but maybe you're almost guaranteed a title? Because the whole Brooklyn Nets situation, they look so good right now, and Harden's not even playing, that players are trying to think about, can I do this with another franchise? So. To me, looking at Lillard, I think he's going to stay in Portland. But there's going to be a bidding war for him. There's going to be some offers out there, and he's certainly going to – I'm sure he'll go on that free agency, tour where they wine and dine him. He meets all the celebrities in the different towns and meets players and coaches and general managers. So we'll see how that all goes. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to re-sign with the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah, I mean, first off, the city of Portland loves hearing that. So if you're from the city of Portland, give us a like on this video and give us a subscribe, because he's talking about Dame Lillard sticking in town. And guess what? I'm going to talk about Dame Lillard leaving town. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here and go the opposite direction here, where I think it's time for Dame Lillard to pack his bags and go to another franchise. And I say this because I love CJ McCollum. Please don't knock me on here like Trailblazer fans or CJ McCollum himself, because I think CJ is an NBA star. And when he's healthy and on the court, they are a dynamic duo. But I just don't think that they can win a title together. And I think they've had the stretch where they've tried to here. And like you said, they can't even really get out of the first or second round. Generally, it's the first round that they're knocked out of. And I think Dame Lillard is just kind of sick of it. And I think it's really one of those things where even right after they lost on Instagram, he had a little cryptic message saying, "What does loyalty get me?" Meaning, I've stuck around Portland and I haven't really got much of anything except fat contracts and a lot of money, which obviously we can't deny that. That's a great thing. But at some point, these $1 million or possibly $1 billion athletes are looking to win a championship, because guess what? That's even bigger for their brand going forward. Like I said, Bill Russell's sitting at home with his 11 championship rings talking about who wants an autograph for $1 million or whatever it may be, because he is the big champion, right? So when you get all these championship rings, I mean, you're pretty much set for life. I mean, going forward, right? I mean, so it's just really one of those things where I think a championship is good for everyone's brand. And I think, yeah, the big three, it's been happening over the last, 5 years and maybe even the last decade in the NBA, where they've been developing big threes. So here's what I say. I think you brought it up. LA is one of the possible options going to join LeBron. I'm pretty sure LeBron's going to be on a recruiting hunt this summer to get another superstar to come into LA so he can try to win another title for his brand, especially because I think he is still one of the best players in the NBA and one of the greatest players of all time. So another championship will definitely help solidify that with him. And with him and Anthony Davis together, like you said, two of the best players in the NBA. If you put Dame Lillard in the mix, you definitely have a big three that can contend with any team in the NBA, including this Brooklyn Nets team. But the other team that I'd like to see him go to, we're going to talk about, and it's a local, so you might want to call me a homer, but I would love to see him come to Boston. I would love to see him team up, little summer bug in my face there. I would love to see him team up with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as the Boston big three. And here's what I say to that. Like, man, yeah, that is so sweet to say, right? Here's what I say to that. I think if he comes to Boston, I think he is the man here. I think he would instantly become the leader of the team. He's got more experience. He's the one that you want the ball in his hands. He's going to hit those game-winning shots. So, man, if I'm the Boston Celtics, if I'm now the new GM, I'm looking to how I can make a move with my roster. And I was saying it last week, I would trade anybody on this roster that I needed to, except Robert Williams, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. I would trade everybody else on this roster to make an upgrade so we can go to try to chase down the 18th championship for this Boston Celtics franchise. So it's one of those things where, man, Dame Lillard, if Dame Lillard's on the market, you have got to make a move for him, even if it's an unsuccessful one, because you might not get another chance for another 5-6 years, or like you said, you might sign a 4-year deal. But I think you're right. He does have the chance to stay in Portland, and you might see a sign and trade, or like I said, you might see him go to LA or Boston. I would prefer him to go to Boston, obviously.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't just sign him. They don't have caps, so they would sign and trade. They'd have to include, I think, Kemba Walker in the deal. I don't know why Portland would want Kemba Walker. We're going to talk about him later on in the show as well. But so that's going to be tough for the Celtics. It might have to be, like you said, a sign and trade. That might have to include a third team. They obviously have some of that trade exception left over from this offseason. I think it's about $10 million. If Evan Fournier leaves, I believe they can still use 17 because that's what his contract was. You just can't use the 17 and 10 together. Same thing with the Lakers. I don't think they necessarily have the cap space to just sign him. So if he does go somewhere else, like you're saying, and it's a place he wants to go, I think it's going to have to be via sign a trade and not necessarily sign a max deal with somebody. And again, Portland has his bird rights, so they have a leg up. They can offer him more money because of the CBA and how the bird rights work. So it's going to be very interesting. The Celtics have also signed point guards. I mean, they signed Kemba Walker. He's a plus 30 point guard, and he's smaller. He's a lot smaller than Lillard, but Lillard's not a big guy either. And teams are starting to look at these smaller point guards in the NBA, and they're starting to break down when they get older. Luckily, Chris Paul is holding it together right now, but we've seen him get injured later on in the season. He's not 100% healthy for the Suns right now. So those type of players, even though they're unbelievable players, those smaller point guards are starting to break down. So that's going to enter into the minds of some of these other teams as well. Even though Dame is such a great player, do you want to do that?